al-Atfal, you would normally study the next book and both.
Your life.
Could you send me the links?
Yeah, I've sent it.
Bismillah ar-Rahim. If everyone can turn to page number 10. Page number 10. So the poem that we're going to be studying, known as Tuhfat al-Atfal, which literally means gift for the children. So Tuhfa means gift. Atfal is the plural of the word Tifl, which means a child. Okay. By no means does it mean that this book is written for children. Yeah. Children meaning age 10 and below, or 12 and below. No. So here, Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah, they use the word tifl to show and demonstrate that we're not looking at the age as a child, but as knowledge. So somebody can be a 50-year-old man who's never studied Tajweed, is also a child in this field. Okay? So a 10-year-old child who has studied this is actually older than a 50-year-old. Okay? So respect your elders and respect the learned as well, even if the learned person is younger than you. Okay? So here, Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah, by naming this poem Tuhfat al-Atfal, has given us a lot of information, okay, about respect. So sometimes the ulama, your imam sahib might be younger than you. Okay? So you shouldn't look down upon age, but look at their knowledge, look at the status that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. Okay? The status of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given them. So Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri, they were born in a city called Tanta. Okay? So the modern day Tanta, so if you look at Cairo, the geography of Cairo, and you look above Cairo, you'll see a place called Tanta. Okay? So Tanta, if you've been to Egypt and you've been to Alexandria, for example, you will have passed Tanta on the way. Okay? Now, the modern day Tanta has grown. Okay? So originally Tanta was a very small area, and besides Tanta was a place called Jamzur. So Jamzur was the village or the area that Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah was born in, which is found in the modern day Tanta, as Tanta grew and overtook the area called Jamzur as well. So Imam Sulaiman al-Jamzuri, the name Jamzuri comes from the area that they were from. Okay? They passed away, the actual year of their passing away is not known, okay? But we have an idea, and we'll come to that in the last verse of the poem. It's written here as 1215 Hijri. So we'll work that out once we complete the poem, inshallah. In madhab, in fiqh, they were Shafi'i in madhab. So majority of Egypt, they followed the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Their teacher is al-Imam Nuruddin al-Mihi. So this name al-Mihi, they will refer to the honorable teacher in the opening muqaddimah, when we come across that. Now the link between myself and Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri is in the table below. So if you start from Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah, you look at their student's name was Muhammad Ahmad al-Mutawalli. Okay? Muhammad Ahmad al-Mutawalli, and their students, if you look just below that, Sheikh Abdul Rahman al-Khatib. And if you look at their student, Sheikh Ali Muhammad al-Dabba. Sheikh Ali Muhammad al-Dabba was one of the greatest modern scholars of Qira'at. Okay, Sheikh Ali al-Dabba. They were also the head of the faculty of Qira'at and reciters of Jamiat al-Azhar. Their student, Sheikh Abdul Fattah bin Matqur, another great scholar. And their student, Sheikh Ashraf bin Hamid al-Hassanain, who are currently alive. And they have an institute in Cairo called Darul Ittaqan. And their student, you can see on the left, Abu Adam Akhlaq, that's myself. And on the right, Sheikh Zain Hood, that's my older brother, the person who wrote the book that you have before you. Okay? The book that you have in your hand is written by Sheikh Zain Hood, whose name's on the right hand side, and you're being taught by Abu Adam Akhlaq on the left hand side. So that's known as an sanad, a chain. So the person who wrote the poem, he taught his students, they taught their students, their students, their students, and it's come down to yourself. So your name would come under my name. This is Abu Adam Akhlaq. So once you complete this book, inshallah, I will give you the ijazah certificate, and you will have all of the names written out in sequence with your name added at the end. And then inshallah, next year, you too can teach Tuhfat al-Atfal to other students and pass this sanad and ijazah on. That's what sanad and ijazah means. It's about linking and connecting yourself to a chain that will take you back. Like for example, the ijazah in Quran. So I took that from my teacher, his teacher, his teacher, his teacher, his teacher, to the Salaf Salihin, to the Tabi'in, then to the Tabi'in, then to the Sahaba, from the Sahaba to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, via Jibreel alayhi salam, to the Lawh al-Mahfuz, from Lawh al-Mahfuz to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the ijazah in Quran. So you've recited the Quran to somebody, who's recited to the next, their teacher, 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 teacher. So ijazat are very, very important, okay? Very important. Because there's no ijazah that anybody can say anything they want. They can make things up, okay? So in Islam, everything is given with a sanad. Similarly in hadith, you will have a sanad. In tafsir, you will have a sanad. In Arabic language, you will have sanad. In a basic poetry, you study from this sheikh, you have it written, I studied from this person. So nothing is said from oneself or fabricated. Okay? So Islam always protects, the dignity and the honor and the trust of knowledge. Okay? I can make something up, I can make a lie and tell you, behind this door there's a lion. Make any fabrication up. Give. Okay? So people fabricate things in Islam as well, like we have fabricated hadith. Yeah? If you study the science of hadith, you have fabricated hadith with baseless chains, and they are always caught out. So give, a lie will always be caught out. It's impossible to lie, fabricate something, and say that I'm not going to be getting caught, and I can get away with it. So in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved knowledge, okay, with these asanid. The ulama have used asanid to preserve knowledge, so nobody can't fabricate anything. So inshallah you'll be part of this golden chain, inshallah. Page number 12. I'll briefly go through the importance and the benefits of reciting Quran. And the reason why here it mentions the benefits of reciting Quran rather than benefits of Tajweed. Okay? Why the benefits of reciting Quran? Because we're studying Tajweed for a particular purpose. We're not studying Tajweed because we enjoy Tajweed. We love the word qalqala and we like to call our son qalqala and daughter izhar and ghunna and no. So it's not like something that we really enjoy that we have to sit down and study Tajweed. The whole purpose of studying Tajweed is for the Quran. Okay? So the most studied subject is Tajweed. Because every individual must recite Quran. The most recited book in the world is Quran. The most taught book is the Quran. So after the Quran, okay, it's Tajweed. It's your Qaida Nuraniya, Qaida Baghdadiya, Madani Qaida. That's what's taught the most. Okay, one of the most important subjects. Why? Because after that, you're going to be going on to the Quran. So the benefits of reciting the Quran. Now another reason why benefits are important. If you don't know the benefits to a subject or benefits to a matter, it's very easy for you to be lost. And I'll give an example. The ulama, they mentioned that when you don't have a correct goal in mind, a correct aim in your mind or in your sight, you are prone to make error. Okay? It's, for example, I want to leave this masjid from that door. Okay? If that door is not in my sight, in my intention, I could be wandering this way, wasting energy and time, walking around this way looking for the door. So a lot of time. So having that goal, that aim in mind is very, very important. If the goal and the aim is not wadih, it's not apparent, it's not clear, 3 types of defects can happen. 3 types of defects. These defects in Arabic are known as abath, ayn, ba, and tha with 3 dots. The ulama mentioned abath is of 3 types. Abath aqli, abath urfi, and abath haqiqi. 3 types of defects. Okay? Abath aqli, the defects of the intellect. For example, you are coming to the masjid to learn Tuhfat al-Atfal. On the way to the masjid, you see an advertisement in a tuition center that they are teaching you music studies or accountancy or philosophy, any other subject, sports therapy, hijama. So you stop at that shop and you get out and you want to inquire about that subject. And before you know it, you've missed your Tajweed lesson and you've automatically gone inside and you've learnt a different subject. Okay? You've learnt a different subject. So your intention leaving home was Tajweed, Quran. On the way to the masjid, you got sidetracked by music studies or philosophy or whichever subject. And you've studied a totally different subject. When you return back home, okay, you are in an intellectual loss. Why? Your maqsad, your maqsood, your hadaf, your ghaya, your aim, your goal was Tajweed, which you didn't obtain. But you obtained another subject that might still benefit you. Yeah? Might still benefit you in some way. But it wasn't your intended subject. The second one, abath aqli, abath urfi. So abath urfi is like, for example, you have studied your subject now. You've come to the masjid, you all studied Tajweed, you've all learned Tajweed. You've passed, you've got your ijazah, you've got your sanad, and then you go and work in McDonald's. And then you go and work in a local fish and chip shop. Yeah. So would you like salt and vinegar on that? Yeah. Chili mayo, salad. So the knowledge that you've gained, the Tajweed, all that studying, you've not put it to use. You didn't go back into the community. You didn't look for students, children. Okay, I'm going to bring children together. I'm going to teach them this subject. I've learned something. I want to pass it on. Okay, but you've got all the knowledge there. You've succeeded in what you wanted. You wanted this. Yeah, you wanted Tajweed. That's why you're here. You've learned it, but you don't utilize it after. You've not benefited, in the long run. So that's the second type of defect, when you don't have your aim and goal in mind. Your last and final type of defect, the haqiqi defect, that is like, for example, the course is happening in, say, in London. So we're in Birmingham. So Birmingham is approximately in the middle here. So London is down south. So I leave home in the morning, I have my packed lunch, my drink, my sandwich, and I'm heading to London to go and teach. Whilst I sit in the train, I feel hungry, so I start having my food, I start drinking, I'm enjoying myself. The train ride comes to an end. I get off the platform and it says, "Welcome to Glasgow." So where did I want to go? I wanted to go to London. But I sat on a train to Glasgow instead, opposite direction. Okay, so my class was supposed to start at 11 o'clock in London. 11 o'clock, I'm in. And for me to get back to London, I must go back to my starting point again, then continue. So that's a total loss. Loss of my money, my ticket, loss of food, water, because I've consumed that in that journey. So I need more food, drink, nourishment, get to my starting point, then continue. And what would happen when I arrive in London then? They were gone. Everybody's gone home. So whoever came to study there, they've wasted time preparing, effort to turn up to the masjid, sat there waiting 2, 3, 4 hours, and Ustad is a no-show. So that's a total loss. So the ulama mentioned, if you don't know the benefits of a subject, if you don't know the, if you don't goal, you aim in mind, in life you'll be here. So these three things, you could apply them into any subject, you could apply them to any part of life, even as a human being, even as a Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you for a purpose. So if you're not fulfilling that purpose, you are going to be in one of these three defects. Same with, for example, a car. A car you buy, so it takes you from A to B. The day it stops taking you from A to B, what do? You scrap it. You try repairing it. If you can't repair it, you scrap the car. Similarly, a human body, a human mind, a Muslim body, a Muslim mind, a Muslim soul, too has a purpose. Okay? As soon as you stop fulfilling that purpose, then no value worth scrapping. So the ulama mentioned these three types of defects only occur when you don't have your target in mind. So what's our target? What's our intention? Benefits of reciting the Quran. So we are only studying Tajweed because of Quran. If Tajweed wouldn't help us in reciting the Quran correctly, we wouldn't study Tajweed. We wouldn't give Tajweed a second look. The whole purpose of studying Tajweed is so that we can recite the Quran correctly. So Quran, why do we need to study the Quran? Okay, let's look at some benefits. The first ayah here, as we're in the month of Ramadan, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. It was the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed. Okay? You know what is the Quran? هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. Yeah? The next two words, هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ, it is huda, guidance for mankind, humankind. وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. And it distinguishes, it makes apparent, yeah, between the right and wrong. Okay? It distinguishes between haqq and batil. So Quran is very important. Now, reading this, I'm not going to go into the explanation, but just to emphasize the meaning. Now, the key thing here is not that the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan. Okay, that's just a fact. Okay, that's a fact that the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan. But what can we take from this? What can we take from this? One, that the month of Ramadan is the month of Quran. But the key things here, it guides mankind, humankind. So if you are an individual who wants guidance, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned to you, then you turn to the Quran. Turn to the Quran. And the reason why it's linked with Ramadan, and Allah ta'ala reminded you that it's with Ramadan, because in Ramadan there's no shaitan. Okay, there's no shaitan in Ramadan, and it's the best opportunity that you've got, okay, to reconnect with Quran without any outside influence, without any negative influence. It's your best opportunity in Ramadan to create a new habit, to reconnect with the Quran, okay? And if you've done it for 30 days, after Ramadan, inshallah, you will continue. It's like, have you ever thought of why do we have to all of a sudden read 20 Taraweeh in Ramadan? Why not just the 5 Fard prayers? We're doing perfectly fine outside Ramadan. As soon as it comes to Ramadan, we have to stand for 20 rak'ah. Why? Just so that you get yourself used to standing in the presence of Allah. Get used to listening to the Quran. If you could listen to the Quran, the whole Quran in the month of Ramadan, in standing form, okay? Standing form, 20 rak'ah every single day. You hear the whole Quran for the month of Ramadan. Then after Ramadan, you can easily sit in your car with your heating on and listen to the Quran. Because you've practiced standing for the whole month of Ramadan. After Ramadan, it should be very easy for you to listen to Quran then. Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting, great things around us to remind us, to give us practice, to get used to. So the key thing here in this ayah is that it's a guidance for mankind, okay? And it does what? It makes apparent, it distinguishes between right and wrong. And that's what we need, yeah, to become better Muslims. Then the next hadith of the Prophet ﷺ mentions, Man qara'a harfan min kitabillahi, whoever recited one letter from the book of Allah, falahu bihi hasana, for him there is a reward. Okay? There's a reward with Allah for reciting even a single letter. Then the Prophet ﷺ continues, وَالْحَسَنَةُ بِعَشَّرِ أَمْثَالِهَا, and that one letter, one harf, okay, that you're reciting for a reward. That reward, وَالْحَسَنَةُ بِعَشَّرِ أَمْثَالِهَا, is equivalent to 10 rewards. Meaning, every letter you will get 10 rewards for. La aqul, the Prophet ﷺ, subhanAllah, one is telling you and then re-emphasizing. He's explaining to you again with an example, emphasizing. He says, La aqul, I'm not saying alif lam mim is a harf. I'm not saying that. But he elaborates, the Prophet ﷺ, walakin alifun harf. But the alif is a harf. Okay? وَلَامٌ harf. And then the letter lam is also a harf. And وَمِيمٌ harf. And mim is a harf. Yeah? So Prophet ﷺ didn't just tell us that you're getting a reward for every letter. He explained that you're getting 10 rewards, and then he even gave you an example. So you only give an example of something that is very, very important. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentions, يُقَالُ يَعْنِي لِصَاحِبِ الْقُرْآنِ. It is said to, meaning the Sahib al-Quran, the person of Quran, the one who's memorized the Quran, the one who is connected with the Quran, Iqra warta. Recite and climb. Okay? Recite the Quran and climb. وَرَتِّلْ كَمَا كُنْتَ تُرَتِّلْ فِي الدُّنْيَا. So this is hadith in regards to after the person passed away, in Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will ask the person to recite the Quran and climb. Okay? And climb how? كما كنت ترتل في الدنيا. So recite the Quran whilst you're climbing, and recite the way you used to recite in the dunya. Okay? And wherever your last ayah will be, that will be your status. That will be your maqam in Jannah. Okay? So you could see, one, Quran will help you get to Jannah, and then Quran will define your daraja, your status in Jannah also. So these are all the importances. So I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll go through, if we turn over to page 14, you can read this in your own time. On page 14, this hadith here, I remember one of my teachers mentioned to me when I was a young child. The angels of mercy listen. Under the heading, the angels of mercy listen. In Sahih al-Bukhari, it is stated that Usayd bin Hudayr, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was at home. He wasn't a rich companion. He was at home, and in the same room he had a horse, where he tied inside his house. He had his own bed there and a little kitchen there, and everything inside one room. And he also had his child with him. And in the night he was reciting Surah al-Baqarah. Whilst reciting the Surah al-Baqarah, the horse became very agitated and started jumping up and down. So he stopped. As he stopped reciting, the horse calmed down. So then he started reciting Surah al-Baqarah a second time. The horse became agitated, started jumping. He stopped again. So he was in fear that the horse might fall or trump over his baby. So he stopped reciting, he opened the door, he looked outside and seen loads of little stars, floating back towards the sky. So he was shocked and amazed. The following day he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? And he said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, last night this happened with me. I was reciting Quran, my horse started jumping. So I was in fear that it might hurt my baby, so I stopped reciting. As I looked through the window, through the door, I seen the stars going back towards the heaven. And what did the Prophet ﷺ respond with? He mentioned, تِلْكَ الْمَلَائِكَ تَنَّتْ لِصَوْتِكَ, that these were angels who came near to you, okay, for your voice. They came to you for your voice, to listen. وَلَوْ قَرَأْتَ, and if you continued, okay, if you continue to recite, yeah, لَأَصْبَحَتْ, until the morning, okay, يَنْظُرُ النَّاسِ إِلَيْهَا, that everybody would have seen them angels, okay. لَا تَتَوَارَى مِنْهُمْ, they would not have disappeared. They would have stayed with you until you recite the Quran. Meaning, whenever you are alone and you recite the Quran at home, don't think you're sat there alone and reciting Quran. There are angels around you who listen to you whilst you recite Quran. So as a Muslim, we can never be alone if we don't, if you stay with the Quran. It's impossible. So whenever you're alone, you feel low, you feel down, start reciting Quran, connect with the Quran. The Quran is the only divine thing that we have in this dunya. Only divine thing that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not man-made, it's not from a human. Everything else is human. The Kaaba was made by who? The human. Masjid al-Aqsa was made by who? Human. Madinah al-Munawwara was made by who? Human. Everything in this dunya is made by humans. We create everything.
I thought Masjid al-Aqsa was made by jinns. I thought Masjid al-Aqsa was made by jinns.
Okay, even jinn, makhluk. Even it's makhluk. Whatever is created is still made by makhluk. But if you look at the Quran is the speech of Allah, kalam Allah. So the only thing that wasn't created, that we have, something that's divine, okay, is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, now on page number 15, these were the fada'il, these were the benefits of reciting the Quran or connecting with the Quran. On page 15, so the basics of Tajweed now. Where does Tajweed fit in? Why do we need Tajweed? Okay? So without Tajweed, what would happen? So Tajweed is a branch of knowledge which deals with the pronunciation of Arabic letters from the correct makharij. So makharij is the plural of makhraj, place of exit. Okay? Along with the correct sifat, characteristics. Okay? Now these two things, makhraj literally means where the letter is born from, where the letter is created from, and sifat are the characteristics. Okay? For example, my makhraj, I am born to my mother, okay, who is from Azad Kashmir. I was born from my mother, who is from America. I am born from a mother who is from Egypt. Okay, that's your makhraj. Sifat are your characteristics. I studied and I became a doctor. I studied and I became a lawyer. I studied and I became a scientist. I studied and became nothing. Okay, so your makhraj you can't change. Okay, makhraj can never change. I can never change my mother. I can't go back in time and say, no, I didn't want a Kashmiri mother. I wanted a Spanish mother. Or I wanted a Moroccan mother. And I wanted my father to have been, I don't know, from somewhere else. So your makhraj can't be changed. Okay, who you are can never be changed. So the letter, where it's born from, can never change. So you could never ever say that letter ba in this scenario is recited from the lips, but in this scenario it's recited from the halq. Okay? So the makhraj of a letter will never ever change. That's number one. Never forget that. In regards to characteristics, there are certain characteristics that are permanent, that can't be changed. For example, I'm a man. I can't change that. Okay? I'm Egyptian, I can't change it. I'm American, I can't change it. I'm Kashmiri, Pakistani, Indian, Bengali, I can't change my characteristic, okay? Because that's my place of birth. So you can't change the place of birth, once you've been born, okay? Certain other characteristics I can't change. My eyes are blue color, my eyes are green color, my eyes are brown color, I can't change them. My skin color, I can't change it, okay? Unless you're Michael Jackson. But you can't change your skin color. The way Allah created you, you can't change that. I'm a male, I can't change it. I'm a female, I can't change it. So these are known as permanent characteristics. Okay? These are your permanent characteristics that you cannot change. I have 2 hands, I can't change. I can't have 5 hands. Yeah? I've got 2 legs, I want another 2. Yeah? I've got 1 brain, I want another brain. Certain things you can't change. Okay? So permanent characteristics, they will never ever change, just like the makhraj. So 2 things will never change. Then you have temporary characteristics. Temporary characteristics are, I'm a man wearing a jubbah. I'll go home and take the jubbah off, wear a jacket. I'll wear a suit tomorrow. I've got the al-Azhar tarbush on. I take it off and I put a small knitted hat on. So these are temporary characteristics. I'm a doctor. Yeah? I go to work, I'm a doctor. And as soon as I go to the accountant's office, I'm all of a sudden a client. Okay? As soon as I come home, I'm neither a doctor, I'm neither a client, I'm a husband to my wife. Okay? So then as soon as my child walks in, Baba, Baba, all of a sudden I'm a dad now. So these are your characteristics that are temporary and they can change. You could change. Yeah? So you have a different characteristic depending on where you are, what kind of circumstance you're in. Yeah? So as soon as you go to the masjid, you are automatically a namazi. Yeah? Because Imam Sahib goes to London and he walks into a masjid and he reads namaz behind the Imam, he's a namazi. As soon as they come back to Gambol Sharif and stand in the Masalla, he's the Imam. Yeah, temporary characteristics. So I'm teaching right now, I'm a teacher. I'll go to Egypt, sit in front of my teacher, I'll become a student. So these 3 things are very important when you come into Tajweed, especially with letters. Number 1, makhraj where the letter is born from shall never ever change. Permanent characteristics will never ever change. Temporary characteristics do change and can change. Okay? So don't forget that. That's your golden rule when it comes to makharij and sifat. And this is where common mistakes start happening. So once again, the makhraj, where the letter is born from, will never ever change. If the letter ba comes from your lips, it will always come from the lips. It will never change. If the qaf comes from the back of your tongue, it will always come from that point. It will never change. Kaf comes just before it, it will never change. Huruf al-halqiyya will always be huruf al-halqiyya. They will never swap around and move. Okay? Permanent characteristics, for example, a letter that has a qalqala in it will always have a qalqala in it. Yeah? If a letter has hams in it, the whistle sound will always have it in there. If a letter has any permanent characteristics, from jahar, shidda, yeah, rekhawa, permanent characteristics will always be there. They will never change. Just like, me being a human being, it's a permanent characteristic. Me being male, permanent characteristics. Yeah? Temporary characteristics can change. Okay? You're an imam today, tomorrow I might get a job as a taxi driver. Or I'm a taxi driver and I memorize the Quran and I become a hafiz. I'm a hafiz sahib. Then next year Ramadan, you come and ask me to lead Taraweeh, then all of a sudden I'm your imam sahib as well now. So from a transition from a taxi driver to a hafiz sahib, from a hafiz sahib to an imam sahib, these characteristics will change. This is what you and I have control over. In Tajweed, that can change, okay, in your letters and how you pronounce. For example, the letter Ra, sometimes it's full mouth, sometimes it's empty mouth. Okay? So when is it full mouth and when is it empty mouth? So being full mouth, empty mouth, that's a temporary, characteristic in letter Ra. Okay? That can change. Inshallah. So we'll go through that inshallah. So its purpose is to make a person more proficient in correct Quranic recitation without mistakes. Learning its rules and principles is fard kifaya. So fard kifaya means if one or two people learn the rules, study the Quran, okay, it's enough for the whole community. It's the opposite of fard al-ain. So fard al-ain means something that is obligatory upon every individual. For example, reading your 5 salahs is obligatory upon every single individual. Keeping your fast in the month of Ramadan is obligatory on every single individual. Zakah, Hajj, everything is individual. Okay? A collective fard is a fard that's compulsory upon the whole community, not just you individually. So one of the communal fard is the knowledge of Tajweed, studying the knowledge of Tajweed, memorizing the Quran, for example, having a hafiz or a qari within yourselves. That's a communal obligation. If in this whole area, in this masjid, there's no hafiz, okay, permanent hafiz, then it's fard upon every single person here to bring forth your children and give them into a qari and say, look, pick any one of these children and make them into a qari. So there could never be a time when a masjid or an area is without a qari. That's what it means for the kifaya. Or like, for example, janazah, funeral prayer. If somebody passes away from amongst us, do we all have to attend? No. As long as some have attended and performed the ghusl and janazah and buried the person, they've removed the fard from everybody. But if nobody did that, then every individual would be a sinner. So learning its rules and principles is fard kifaya. Okay, it's fard upon the whole community to know the rules, meaning qalqala, what does it mean? Idhar, what does it mean? Gunna, what does it mean? Mad, what does it mean? That is fard kifaya. You don't need to know every single name. Okay? But its application by reciting the Quran with correct tajweed is fard per every single person individually. Okay? And the reason for that is because you are reciting the Quran. Okay? When you are reciting the Quran, you must recite it correctly. Now, if I'm reciting وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. So why did I do وَمِنَ what's that called? I don't know. But I know I read it right. Yeah? I don't know the name of it. Make sense? So I don't know the name, but I recited it correctly. That's enough for me. So, وَمِنَ
I'm going to transition from this camera to the other one. We got some students online. Should I leave this one on, or should we ask them to go on to that one, because that one's a lot better? They'll be able to see a lot better.
With the same link or different link?
Different link. Your choice, inshallah.
I think leave it.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. No problem.
So وَمِنَ النَّاسِ نَاسِ two haraka. Why did I make it long for? I don't know. I don't know why I made it long. But I do know that's the correct way. So reciting the Quran correctly yourself, okay, is fard upon you. But you don't need to know why you done that, why you done this, as long as you've done it correctly. Similar to like theory tests and driving. Okay, you study the theory test, but you don't remember it. As long as you drive correctly, individually, you'll be okay. Yeah, you stop at the traffic lights. You don't know why you're stopping, but you're stopping. You come to a zebra crossing, you don't know why you're stopping, but you're stopping. But you're doing the right thing. Yeah, you're driving safe. When you're turning left, you are indicating. Yeah. Now, major mistakes. So, mistakes in, if somebody doesn't recite the Quran correctly, two types of mistakes can occur. Something that's major and something that's minor. They're both different. So major mistakes in Arabic are called lahnul jali. Lahnul jali. Lahn means mistake. Jali means great. So a great mistake. So a great mistake would be if somebody changed a letter. So remember when I mentioned that makhraj of a letter can never ever change? So if you change the makhraj, for example, qaf is from here. This is the qaf spot. But you've moved to here. Qul. Qul. Back of the tongue. Qul. 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 Just by making it light, you've changed the makhraj. With the makhraj changing, the sifat have changed as well. Yeah? That is a major mistake. Because qul means to recite, read. Qul means to eat. So, qul huwa Allahu ahad. No, say, read, say, speak. He, Allah, is one. Qul. And qul means eat. He, Allah, is one. So changing a letter changes the meaning. That is known as lahnul jali, major, great mistake. Another example would be, for example, a common mistake. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانِ Surah Al-Rahman. Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ He created mankind. خَلَقَ. Many people will recite it fast, especially in Taraweeh. حَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ. حَلَقَ without a dot. Ha means to shave. Yeah. So Allah shaved mankind. Allah shaved humankind. So it changes the meaning totally. So no longer is Allah creating, He is shaving. Makes sense? So any mistake that you make concerning the makharij is known as lahnul jali, a major mistake. There are consequences to it. We'll come to that later on. So the first one is changing a letter, badil, one letter into another letter. And there's many examples, even in English. For example, Qari Sahib is sat on the chair, S-A-T. Change one letter, S into a F. Qari Sahib is fat on the chair. Just by changing one letter. It's not the same thing. And if I was inviting somebody, would you like to come and sit on the chair? Would you like to come and fit in the chair? I'm sure they'd be embarrassed. Imagine the state church secretary calling the honorable guest, Hazrat Allama Sahib, would you like to come and fit in the chair? And coincidentally, he's a big man. I'm sure he'll be offended. So, similarly in Quran also takes offense from you as well. When Quran is recited incorrectly, in another hadith of Prophet ﷺ, the Quran sends la'ana upon you. So when you're thinking you're getting sawab for every letter, 10 blessings, you're not getting the 10 blessings. The Quran is cursing you. Yeah? So rather than getting good deeds, you're accumulating your bad deeds. Number 2, omitting or adding a letter, taking away a letter or adding a letter to the Quran. The example here, reading allama, which is dual. Yeah? They both taught. 2 people. Instead of reading allama. So allama, he taught. Meaning who? Allah taught. Allah's one. Yeah? Allama al-Quran. Allama al-Quran. He taught the Quran. But allama, they too. Meaning there's 2 gods out there who taught the Quran. So automatic shirk. Automatic kufr. Yeah? Meanings changed. And vice versa. Reducing, reading qala, he said, instead of qala, they too said. There was 2 people. You're saying with 1 person. So again, it would be a lie. Yeah? So if I said to you, yeah, I'm your witness. I really saw 1 person there. But really there was 2 people. How could I make that mistake from 2 to 1 or 1 to 2? Same thing with the Quran. Wherever it's dual, okay, it's dual. Wherever it's singular, you're not changing. Wherever there's a mad, you do the mad. Wherever you take the mad away, it'll change the meaning. Changing a vowel, okay, vowel, which is the fatha, dhamma, kasra, or zabar, zer, pesh in Urdu, or Punjabi, or Farsi. Changing one of these will also change the meaning. For example, an'amtu, okay, an'amtu, I favored. So, Sirat al-Azina, an'amta, you favored. An'amtu, I favored. So, did I favor? No, Allah favored. Sirat al-Azina, an'amta alayhim, the path of favored. We're saying, Sirat al-Azina, an'amtu alayhim, the path upon who I did ihsan upon. Who did I do ihsan upon? So again, changing a vowel. Another example from the Quran, which I normally give. قَتَلَ دَاوُودُ جَالُوتَ. قَتَلَ دَاوُودُ جَالُوتَ. Dawood killed Jalut. That's in the Quran. Now, I read قَتَلَ دَاوُودُ, du, with the pesh. Jaluta, with the fatha. If I switch these 2 around, I read قَتَلَ دَاوُودَ Jalutu. Yeah? The meaning's changed. Meaning Dawood was killed by Jalut. Opposite meaning. It was Dawood ﷺ who killed Jalut, not Jalut who killed Dawood. Just by changing 1 vowel. Okay? And vowels are very, very small. Yeah? Vowels are very, very small, and they play a key role in the Quran. There's actually a whole history behind how the vowels came into form, but inshallah we'll speak on that another time, another day, inshallah. The last one, making a sakin letter, a silent letter, mutaharrik, a mutaharrik letter, sakin. Again, it is a major mistake. For example, reading khalaqana, khalaqana, he created us. Instead of reading khalaqna, we created. The difference between khalaqna and khalaqana. If you look at the difference, the qaf is supposed to be sakin. Yeah, khalaqna, we created, meaning Allah saying, we created. Khalaqana, meaning He created us. Meaning Allah was created. Na'udhu billah. Ruling in regards to this, it is haram, prohibited, okay, to make major mistakes in Quran, even if it is unintentional. Even if you don't intend to make a mistake, it is still haram. Yeah? You recited the Quran wrong, but your intentions are good. It's month of Ramadan, Shahr al-Quran. I want to do the full Quran khatam. I want to recite the Quran 3 times. Imam Sahib in Taraweeh wants to recite really fast. Why? Because people out behind are very old and they got work in the morning. So he's reciting here at a super fast speed, yeah, running the 100 miles, and everybody wants to finish quickly. But he's making major mistakes, okay? Even though it's unintentional, he doesn't deliberately, he's a Muslim, he has Iman, he's strong, he's passionate about Quran, he spent all his life memorizing the Quran. Okay, so we can't accuse his intentions because he's making the mistakes. Okay, it's still haram. Okay, even if it's unintentional. Okay, now let's go on to minor mistakes and then we'll go to the conclusion. So minor mistakes are called lahm al-khafi. Lahm al-khafi are mistakes that are minor, that are small. These are mistakes in the temporary sifat. Temporary sifat. For example, the letter, should have been a full mouth letter, is then made into an empty mouth letter on the letter Ra. But generally, full mouth and empty mouth is a permanent sifa. Remember that, it's a permanent sifa. So a temporary sifa, for example, would be temporary sifa, for example, qalqala. Qalqala is temporary. When there's a fatha on the letter qaf, you don't do qalqala, you read qa, qamarun, yeah? Wal qamari, yeah? Then khalaq, fatha comes down to it, khalaqa. So anything in the temporary sifat, which is not permanent, okay? For example, izhar, I'm supposed to do izhar. Yeah? Tanhar, I read tanhar. Minor mistake. Minor mistake. Even though we would probably pick out Imam Sahib, you read tanhar, that's incorrect. So we'll pick that mistake out, but we'll leave the permanent sifat. Or like ikhfa, iqlab. Okay? The full mouth or empty mouth on the letter Ra. So these are lahm al-khafi. If you make a lahm al-khafi mistake, okay, it is also incorrect. It's sinful, okay, but it's not as the lahm al-jali. So the ruling now, scholars have differed over its ruling. Some say it's haram, prohibited, okay, also meaning lahm al-khafi is also haram, whilst others regard it as makruh, slight. I mean, this Imam Sahib or this Qari Sahib's qira'ah is makruh, is disliked. Avoid listening to him. Avoid learning from him. Somebody who's making these mistakes shouldn't be teaching Quran. You should avoid a teacher that's making even lahm al-khafi. Okay? In short, those who are capable of reciting the Quran with the Tajweed must do so. If you're capable. Unless you've got a stutter, you can't pronounce certain letters. Otherwise, it is a grave sin, guna. However, if a person struggles in recitation, you find it difficult, even after exerting so much effort and trying, you're still making mistakes, okay? He will receive a double reward. So you will get a double reward after putting effort in. It doesn't mean if I don't try, and I'll recite it wrong, I'm going to get double reward. I'd rather continue the way I am. No. You must put your effort in. You must come and learn. You must try. Then make mistakes, and you gain a double reward. So the previous ruling, or the ruling that I'm giving you now, doesn't apply to you. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ mentions in the hadith, al-mahiru bil-Qur'ani ma'a safarat al-kiram al-barara, that the expert in Quran is with the noble, righteous angels. Okay? There are two rewards for the person who recites the Quran and stutters in it. وَالَّذِي يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنِ, and for those who recite the Quran, وَيَتَّعْتَعُ, يَتَّعْتَعُ meaning stutter. Okay? وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِ شَاقٌ لَهُ أَجْرًا. Okay? So he stutters and he can't, due to it being difficult. For them they are له أجران, a double reward. Okay? Mullah Ali Qari, rahimahullah, Qadi Ayad in Al-Shifa. Anybody read Al-Shifa? Al-Shifa? Okay. He mentions in there that if somebody adds in the 4 conditions I've given you of major mistakes, okay? If anybody does any one of them 4 deliberately, they mention that he is a kafir. He's out of the fold of Islam. Anybody who does it deliberately, meaning, I know it says in the Quran, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ, but I choose to recite خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ. Kufr. So if you're intentionally reciting the Quran incorrectly, it's as though that I am changing the Quran. If I was to get a pen and paper and start distorting and changing the Quran, okay? Without any doubt, you'll call me a kafir. Every mufti in UK would put a fatwa of kufr on me. Why? Because I'm just changing the Quran, making my own Quran up. Okay? So what's the difference between me writing a new Quran or me speaking a new Quran? Yeah? Like for example, Alhamdu, hamd with the ha, the halwa ha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe. Alhamdu, the 2 ayha, the soft one. Yeah? Alhamdu from Aqsa al-Halq, behind you Adam's apple. Alhamdu, that means all lanat, all dirt and filth be to Allah. Now think, how many times do we read Allah? Alhamdulillah. How many times do we do that? Yeah? So we're not actually praising Allah. So you're actually sending lanat upon Allah. Yeah? And then when the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that, praying salah will stop you from doing evil and wrong, and you think, well, I pray namaz 5 times a day. I'm a pakka namazi. I'm here before the muazzin to call the azan, but still I do hibat, but still I do chori, but still I lie. So there's nothing wrong with the Prophet ﷺ saying hadith. Yeah? There's nothing wrong with the Prophet ﷺ teaching that you pray salah, it will stop you from doing haram and evil. If you're still doing it, there's something wrong with your salah. Or you're doing dua to Allah and it's not working. There's something wrong with what you're doing. Yeah? So tajweed is very, very important. And the reason why every single tajweed book that you find, okay, every single tajweed book you find, they don't actually talk about tajweed, they talk about mistakes first. Okay? Similar to what Sheikh Zain has done here. Mention the mistakes first, okay, the consequences of not having the subject first. Why? So that we can renew our intention, and the first thing that I mentioned about your goal, your objective, why you're studying the subject. Okay, it's important for you to know why we study tajweed. What's the benefit of this tajweed subject? Okay, that will motivate you to study the subject. Okay, and not knowing this, you think, yeah, tajweed is just an additional subject. This is like, just a cream on top of a nice sweet dessert. If it's there, it's wow. If it's not there, we're not really missing anything. No, Tajweed is actually a very essential and a very important subject. So now we move on to the actual Tuhfat al-Atfal, the actual poem. Now, Tuhfat al-Atfal, I'll give you a brief comparison between Tuhfat al-Atfal and Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. Muqaddimah ibn Jazari will come later on. So after you complete this Tuhfa, then you do Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. So basic outline, what's the difference between the two poems? Okay. First of all, Tuhfat al-Atfal is the half the size of Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. Okay, it's about 60 odd couplets. Jazari is just over 100 couplets, 106, 107 couplets. That's the first obvious difference. Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri, rahimahullah, they used to teach Muqaddimah ibn Jazari to their students. Whilst teaching the students the second poem, the one after this, Jazariya, the students used to struggle. They used to find it very, very hard to comprehend all the information that was in the higher poem. So Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah, they sat down and they wrote a new poem based upon the same scale, in the scale I was talking about in the beginning, yeah, in the poetry format. So the same scale as the upper, higher Muqaddimah ibn Jazari, the Muqaddimah, they wrote a basic poem and called it Tuhfat al-Atfal. Okay, so they wrote this for the students. So you start reading this first, then you could transit and go on to the more advanced poem. One of the differences, in the Tuhfat al-Atfal, there's no makharij. There's no makharij. So normally you would expect in the Tajweed book to talk about makharij. But Tuhfat al-Atfal, they didn't mention it. Why? Because it's mentioned in Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. They don't want to repeat it again. The only makharij they mention here are 6 letters. Okay? The 6 letters that they mention in Tuhfat al-Atfal are the huruf al-halqiyya, the letters of the throat. The reason why they mention the letters of the throat, because they are forced to do so. Why? Because we need to know the 6 letters so we know when to do izhar on the Nun Sakina. Hence why they mention the 6 letters of the halq. Other than that, there's no other makharij mentioned in this. Okay. Sifat lazima, the permanent characteristics that are talked about. Okay. And the temporary characteristics are talked about. The temporary one you will find in here. The permanent characteristics you won't find in this. They haven't mentioned them in this. Again, why? Because you find them in the next book of Muqaddimah ibn al-Jazari. Okay? So whatever Tuhfat al-Atfal covers is not covered in the book above. So it's actually perfect book 1, book 2, poem 1, poem 2. Even in Jamaat al-Azhar, it's taught in that sequence as well. So they teach you Tuhfat al-Atfal first, then they'll teach you Muqaddimah ibn al-Jazari. Then after that, they'll teach you Salsabil and Tuhfa Samrudiyya, and there's many other Butun texts after. But the original 2 are Tuhfat al-Atfal and Muqaddimah ibn al-Jazari. So Muqaddimah means the opening. Muqaddimah. On page number 19 we're looking at. Okay. So page number 19, top left hand corner, it says Muqaddimah. So Muqaddimah means the opening chapter, the entrance, what's being brought forward. Okay? They mention يقول راجي رحمة الغفور دوما سليمان هو الجمزوري. يقول راجي, says the seeker. Okay? Says the seeker. Seeker of what? رحمة الغفور, the mercy of the most forgiving, or the ever forgiver. So Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah is asking for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. He's saying that I am he who asks for his Lord's forgiveness all the time. Dawman, da'iman in Arabic, da'iman, dawman meaning always. Sulaiman, which is his name, huwa al-Jamzuri, who's from the place called Jamzur, which I mentioned earlier on. Jamzur was a small village that can be found in the modern day city called Tanta. Alhamdulillahi musalliyan ala, all praise be to Allah, Musalliyan ala, whilst sending salutations upon Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa alihi, and upon his family, wa man tala, and everybody that follows, and everybody that comes after. Now, here there could be two meanings. One, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, and then whoever came after them, yeah, till today. It could also mean وَمَنْ تَلَا, and whoever literally followed them, meaning we follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we follow the Ahlul Bayt. Okay, so it could be both meanings. وَبَعْدُ هَذَا النَّظْمُ لِلْمُرِيدِ, and thereafter. And thereafter, هذا النظم, this poem, للمريد, it is for my students, okay, for the students. Now, murid literally has a few meanings. One is like peer murid, okay, so murid literally means like a leech, yeah, you know, something like a leech, it sticks onto you. You try to get rid of it, and you just can't get rid of it. Yeah? That's a murid. It's a student. A student attaches itself to the knowledge, to the teacher, and doesn't want to leave the teacher. Okay? Always wants to be with the teacher. Wherever the teacher goes, sat there all the time. I got one more question, always wanting to learn. Hence why they use the word murid. They could have used many other words. Okay? في النون والتنوين والمدود. In the nun sakina, tanween, and madud. So to mention three things, that this poem, I have written this poem for students. And what is the poem about? Finnuni, in nun sakina, tanween, the two fatha, two dhamma, two kasras, and last one, one madud, and the stretching of the mad. But there's more than that in the poem. They only mention three things just to make the bayt, the poem rhyme. Finnuni والتنوين والمدود سميته بتحفة الأطفال. So just to make it rhyme. So سميته, and I have named it تحفة الأطفال, the gift for the children. عن شيخنا, okay, عن شيخنا, I have, from our teacher. So عن شيخنا, Mihi was the name. Mihi was the name of the teacher. Okay? Dhil Kamali, meaning Sahibul Kamal. Okay? Bearer of perfection. So they described their teacher as Sahibul Kamal, meaning he was perfect in Tajweed. He was amazing in knowledge. He was a great teacher. Yeah? He was my role model. That was my teacher. Then they mention, Arju bihi an yanfa'a tullaba. I intend with this to benefit the tullaba, the students. Now they're telling you the benefit that they are presuming or thinking for you whilst writing this poem. They mention, Arju bihi, I intend with it, an yanfa'a tullaba, to benefit the students with what? Wal ajra wal qabula wal thawaba. With ajr, qabul, and thawab. Okay? Recompense, acceptance, and reward. So that's your opening introduction. So here I've got two questions. In verse number 3, I touched upon it slightly. وَبَعْدُ هَذَا النَّظْمُ لِلْمُرِيدِ. The third line. The word here is murid. Okay? The line just below that, they mentioned سَمَّيْتُهُ بِتُحْفَةِ الْأَطْفَالِ. I have named this the gift for children. The verse above they mentioned that this poem is for murids. Next line is saying that the name of this poem is for the children, gift for the children. In the last line, Arju, underneath that, Arju bihi an yanfa'a tullaba. I intend to benefit the students. So what's the difference between these three words? If you look here, وبعد هذا النظم للمريد is the word murid. Next line, atfal. Next line, tullab. They've chose three different words in three verses, one above the other. Why? Anybody knows the difference between a murid, a tifl, or atfal, and a talib? So murid, I hinted. So murid, you know, peer murid. So the peer sahib can be right, peer sahib can be wrong. The murid is blind, he is it and nobody else. He follows blindly. He don't care. Just like I'm a murid of Aston Villa football. I support them. They win or lose Villa. Or I support Manchester United. Or I support this person. Or I support this team. So when you become a fanatic, okay, when you become a fanatic in a particular team, subject, or anything, so the token murid meaning a fanatic in that particular field. Yeah? سميته بتحفة الأطفال, and I have named this poem a gift for the children, okay, which I mentioned earlier on, that a child, not literally a child, 9 years old, 5 years old children, this is for Tuhfat al-Atfal, gift for the child in the field of this subject, in the field of this knowledge, okay, in the subject of Tajweed, who's a beginner. So you could be 50 years old, you could be 100 years old, and still be a child in this subject. Okay? And the last one, أرجو به أن ينفع الطلاب. Okay? I intend with this to benefit who? The talib. Now what is a talib? You can't become a talib without being a murid and a tifl. You can't become a talib. Because to be a murid, you have to become a fanatic. You have to be dedicated. You have to be chasing that golden dream, that golden teacher, that golden subject, that golden knowledge. You have to become a fanatic to be a murid. So that characteristic you must have within you to be a good student. The second thing is being a child. You know, at school, when you tell a child, you know, anything, the child will never question. He will never question. He will just think, you know, my teacher's older, he's right or she's right, and he will just follow. Like you told your child, we're Muslims, has he ever questioned you? A little child, no. You're living like a Muslim, he starts living like a Muslim. You speak Punjabi at home, your son, your daughter, as they're growing up, they start speaking Punjabi as well. They've never questioned me, Baba, Mama, why do you speak Punjabi? My friend over there, he speaks Chinese at home, why can't we speak Chinese? They don't really question. So whatever they get around the surrounding, they will take it. Yeah? So Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri, rahimahullah, by mentioning 3 different names, Murid, Atfal, and then Talib, okay, Tullaba, they've basically showed us the type of student of knowledge that we should become. Okay? Number 1, we should be a fanatic in that subject, dedicated in that subject. Number 2, we should act like a child, not like an imam. I know everything. Yeah? Become humble, like a child. Yeah? Ready to absorb anything the teacher's going to give you and absorb it like a sponge. Once you've got these 2 characteristics, only then you'll become a talib. If not, you can't become a true talib. You can sit in front of a teacher and think, you know, my beard's grey. No, he's just our beard. He's bacha. Why should I listen to him? He might be wrong. So if you have that attitude, you're never going to learn. Okay? And so you have to be dedicated. The next question I've got, that's the first question. Second question, Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri mentioned, وَالْأَجْرَ وَالْقَبُولَ وَالثَّوَابَ. In the last line, the last 3 words, they mentioned, وَالْأَجْرَ وَالْقَبُولَ وَالثَّوَابَ. So qabul we know, acceptance. But what's the difference between ajr and thawab? Anybody? Ajr and thawab. What's the difference between?
Trying to pursue doing it, and then actually whether it's accepted or not.
Close? Close?
Is ajr what you gain? Is thawab is, you know, what you
Ajr is what you gain, and thawab is
what you benefit, what you get.
what you get. Yeah. So ajr is what you gain.
To make the effort.
Yes. For example, I woke up today morning, I walked to the shop, I paid, I bought milk, I came back home, and I've got milk at home now for my cereals. So I had to do something to get that. If I didn't walk to the shop, I wouldn't get the milk. That's ajr. Okay? So you give, for example, sadaqah of £10, you will gain the reward of £10 in sadaqah. Allah will give you exactly what you've given. You give more, He'll give you more. You give less, He'll give you less. Yeah? You read one line of the Quran, okay, and that line, for example, has 30 letters. 30 times 10, 300. 300 reward you're going to get. So whatever you've done, you've been rewarded. That's ajr. What's thawab? Thawab is
what you obtained.
what you are given. It's nothing to do with you no more. Nothing to do with you no more. For example, in ajr, I booked my ticket. I'm going to be going Umrah on the 26th of this month. So it's cost me about £400. I have to catch a flight to Cairo, then fly to Jeddah, then transport from Jeddah to Makkah, wear the ihram, scared, one hair comes out your body, you have to give them. Yeah, in the heat, fasting, everyone pushing, shoving, go around the Kaaba 7 times. After done that, then go to the Safa Marwa, then have to run up and down. The little tiles will hurt your feet. Finish all that, you're going to shave your head off. It's a lot of hard work. And after that, you've completed one Umrah. So I've done work for one Umrah, and I will get one Umrah. But thawab is what? You go home today, you go and see your mom, your father, you look at them, you smile. They smile back at you, you get one thawab of one hajj. I've spent money, I'm going to be going to do Umrah at the end of this month. Yeah? All of that effort, sweat, yeah? At the end to get one selfie in front of the Kaaba. All of that, so it cost over £1,000. But you have gone home, sat home, smiled at your mom, smiled at your father, and Allah's given you thawab of a hajj. Okay? So what have you done for that hajj? Nothing. Something very small. But the hajj wasn't given to you based upon your actions, yeah? Of the quantity of action. That was given upon the of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference between ajr and thawab. So when you recite Quran, you will be gaining ajr, okay? That's one thing. Thawab, Allah will give you as much as He wishes. You don't know. So the Prophet ﷺ, in the narration hadith that we discussed, that, for you there's 10 reward. The Prophet ﷺ is talking about ajr. He's talking about the ajr. He's not talking about thawab. If you look at the hadith, if you go back to page number 12. If you look at page number 12. من قرأ حرفا من كتاب الله فله به حسنة والحسنة بعشر أمثالها. Okay? That's something that you know now. If I read one letter, I will get 10. If I read 10 letters, I will get 100. You already know that. You're not going to change that now. Okay? Thawab is something that's beyond. You could recite Surah Fatiha, like Surah Ikhlas 3 times. Recite Surah Ikhlas 3 times, you get the reward of the Quran. Do you understand? That's Allah's mercy. It's nothing that you haven't physically read the whole Quran. You haven't put the effort in and recite the whole Quran. It takes longer. It'll take you at least 30 to 35 hours. At least to do one full khatm Quran. Reciting at a correct pace. At least 30, 35 hours. So Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah, in the last verse, they've mentioned 3 different things here. So ajr, you put the effort in, okay, and then you will get rewarded for it. The next thing is qabool, that Allah accepts it, and then you get what? thawab. And in that sequence they've written it. Shaykh Sulaiman Jamzuri rahimahullah. Page number 20. للنون إن تسكن وللتنوين أربع أحكام فخذ تبييني. Now Shaykh Sulaiman Jamzuri rahimahullah, they had this character of when they were with elders, they were like a very mature teacher. When they were with children, they were like a child. Okay? They were very friendly, charactered, natured person. And from the language that they've chosen in this poem, you can see that. And I normally, when I'm teaching this Tuhfat, I normally mention this is the Jamzuri kick. Yeah? So Shaykh Sulaiman Jamzuri regularly does that throughout the whole poem whilst they writing and teaching. And you notice that. Like here, they mentioned, لِلنُّونِ إِن تَسْكُنْ, and when the noon in taskun becomes silent, meaning there's no fatha, dhamma, kasra on the noon, وَلِلتَنْوِينِ, and the letter, the tanween, fatha, dhamma, kasra, the two of them, fathatain, dhammatain, kasratain, arba'u ahkamin, there will be 4 rules. Okay? And then they mention, فَخُذْ, and kino, and take. فَخُذْ تَبْيِينِ, and take my explanation. Okay? So meaning, whenever there's a noon sakina or a tanween, there will always be 4 rules. Okay? 4 rules will occur. They mention, فَالْأَوَّلُ الْإِظْهَارُ. The first one is al-izhar qabla ahrufi, before the letters. So the first rule we're talking about here is izhar qabla ahrufi lil-halqi. Okay? Before the letters of halq, of your throat. Sittun are 6 letters. رُتِّبَتْ فَلْتَعْرِفِي, that have been arranged so that you shall know. Another Jamzur kick. فَلْتَعْرِفِي, so that you understand. Okay? So when they say arranged in what? So look at the letters now. Line number 3. همز فهاء ثم عين حاء مهملتان ثم غين خاء. So when they mention rutibat, it's been arranged in a sequence, meaning from aqsa al-halq to wast al-halq, from wast al-halq to adna al-halq. So here it's very important to understand the letters of halq. That's your tongue. That's your palate, roughly where your tonsils are. That's your teeth. I'm not going to go through all the Bukharij. Just want to show you this.
Can you explain a bit louder what you're drawing?
I will explain it. Subtitle it. Sure. Okay. That's my artwork. That's your opening of your mouth. Okay, so if I'm looking this way, that's the opening of the mouth, down, and that's your neck. That's the item of the apple that sticks out. Okay, the cartilage that you have here, and that's your neck, and then chest and body. This blue line here in the middle represents your two different passageways. One is your breathing, so you're breathing from the front. Okay, so you're breathing air passageways on the front, and then eating is on your back. Okay, and that's where it differs from. So when you breathe, you swallow. That's your point. And I think I've done my tonsils a bit higher. And that's where your tonsils are, okay, at the back of your mouth. So, does anybody here know where your three makharij are? Makharij. So you got 6 letters. If you look at the verse number again, the third line, Hamzun Faha'un, there's your 2 letters, Hamza and Ha, Ainun Ha'u, Ain and Ha, Muhmalatan means dotless, without any dots. Yeah? Meaning the Ha without dot, with the Ain without dot. Because when you add the 2 dots, they become what? Thumma Ghainul Kha'u. Become Ghainul Kha'. These are your 6 letters that are known as Huruf al-Halqiyya, okay? The incredible Halq letters. So where do you think these letters fit here? So I put 7 markers now.
One would be Hamza and Ha.
At what number?
1.
So Hamza and Ha. Where do you think the next 2? Ain and Ha. Huh? Ain and Ha number 2. And Ghain and Kha.
Yeah,
Top of your throat. Top of your throat.
So where would that be?
6 or 7.
Number 6 or 7? 5?
Top of your
Okay.
throat.
So see Ghain and Kha here. Somebody said at the top. Here. Ghain and Kha here as well. Okay. Anybody else got a different opinion?
Probably number 6.
6 is what?
Yeah.
Ain.
No,
Fine.
Ain, Kha.
So number 6 is well, okay. Sisters, if you don't want to shout out, but in your mind have a both can speak out. What are your numbers? Give me 3 numbers. 3 winning numbers.
6, and then the one above the Adam's apple.
So 1 above the Adam's apple, number 4. So 4 is going to be Ain and Ha. Yeah? So Ain and Ha here. Where would you put your Hamza and Ha? At what number? Number? 3. Good, interesting. Anybody else got a different opinion?
Hamza 6.
Hamza and Ha at number 6.
Hamza
6.
like what under throat.
Hamza and Ha under the throat. Give me a number. So that's your bottom of your neck.
Yeah. What number is it?
1.
Yeah, number 1.
Hamza and Ha, okay. And Ain and Ha,
Ain 3.
number 3. Okay. Ain and Ha, you think it's here?
Right number 1.
Ghain and Ha, right at the top. Okay, that's what it is. Anybody else got a different opinion to that? So sisters who don't want to shout out, make sure you write a number down on your book or remember what you think, where you would classify this as. I could tell you, out of all of these, the Hamza and Ha, this Hamza and Ha is correct. Hamza and Ha is correct. And nobody got Ain and Ha right.
In Ayn and Ha number 5.
Ain and Ha number?
Number 5.
That's correct. Ain and Ha is number 5. Okay. And Ghain and Ha, is it number 6 or number 7?
Number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Okay. Let me explain to you now. There's something called new one doesn't work. At that point there, behind the Adam's apple, is something that looks like something like that. Behind your Adam's apple is something called a larynx. In Arabic, it's called hanjar. Al-hanjara. English, larynx. Okay. In my language, it's called a voice box. Okay. So your voice box in English is called larynx. In Arabic, it's called hanjara. Where do you find it? Behind your Adam's apple. Okay. So where does sound come from? Voice box. Okay. So is it possible for you to create a sound from anywhere below here? Impossible. Impossible to make any sound from below that point. So your bottom point, when you say Aqsal Halq, remember, Aqsal Halq is the incredible Halq, meaning your throat, not your neck. Your neck starts from here, but your throat don't start from here. This is neck, gardan. The whole thing is your neck. It starts from way below. Yeah? But your voice box is behind your Adam's apple. It's the bone that sticks out. Now, what is an Adam's apple? Adam's apple is a cartilage. Okay, very soft bone, like your ear bone or your nose bone. It's a cartilage. What the Adam's apple does, it actually protects. It protects your voice box. Yeah? And if you never had an Adam's apple, you look right and you strain your voice box. You damage it. You look left, you'll damage your voice box. That's how fragile, because this is your voice box. That's a piece of meat, gosht, another piece of gosht, and it's got like a little tiny little gap in between. And that's where the air passes through, and it comes out through here. And if you go onto YouTube, just type in larynx or voice box, yeah, and you'll see loads of anatomy videos, and you'll see it's literally paper thin. Your voice box is probably thin as this paper. And as air passes, it generates a sound. The sound is born. So air, through the voice box, generates a sound directed towards a particular makhraj, wherever it's going to be, generates a letter. So it's impossible to read any letter below your larynx, below your Adam's apple. So a lot of subcontinent India, Indo-Pakistan ulama, Qurra say, yeah, you should read the letter Ha from your chest. Yeah, Ha comes from your chest. It is impossible for Ha to come from your chest. Because if your Ha can come from your chest, then based upon that logic of yours, I would argue my letter Qaf is read from my right foot, Ba from my left foot, Jim is my right hand. say whatever I want to say. Yeah? Because the voice box is here, behind me Adam's apple. Below that point can't be any sound. So whoever mentions that read from your chest, letter Ha, incorrect. Yes, your chest vibrates. Yeah, because to read the letter Ha, you must open your voice box drastically to allow the A to pass. Like وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا ha. Now I don't read وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا ha. Yeah? So it has to come, the letter Ha has to be heard. So وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا ha, ha, not ha, just A coming out. Yeah? So the correct one was Hamza and Ha. Okay, the next thing now, Ain and Ha. If you notice in the Ain and Ha, there's something about Ain which is very, very obvious. Ain. Ain. There's something happening. You put in the effort, something actually happens physically. Yeah? You could feel something physically moving in your voice. Something happening. Same with the Ha. 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 There's something physically happening in the throat. So what's that happening? You're squeezing something. Yeah? You're squeezing a muscle, yeah? But it's so hard to squeeze a muscle in your throat that you can't even see. So which muscle are we actually squeezing? So where does the letter Ain and Ha come from? So the correct answer was the number 5 that nobody got. Okay? So number 5, so I'll write the correct ones in. So Hamza and Ha are here. And number 3. And here is your Ain and Ha. So the red ones are the correct ones. So Ain and Ha come from here. Remember when I mentioned the food passageway and the air passageway? Now, your air passageway is on the front of your neck, the front part of your chest. So when you're breathing, your chest moves up and down. If I was to pass out here and one of you unfortunate people might have to come and give me a mouth to mouth or resuscitate me, bring me back to life, what are you going to do? You're going to press my chest. Yeah? Chest. Where do you find it? My breathing is on the front. So you're going to go straight to the chest. Okay, now imagine you got a baby. You're feeding the baby some milk. What do you do after you fed the baby milk? You pat, rub the back. Why not the chest? Why not the belly? Yeah? Because when you're eating or drinking, your food goes down the back of the neck into your stomach. When you're breathing, okay, your windpipe is on the front of your neck. So hence why when someone strangles you, okay, when you're getting strangled, they're closing your air pipes, your windpipe, not your food pipe. Yeah? So even as a grown man, when you choke on food, the person sat next to you, your best mate, what did they do? Slap you in your back. Yeah? They won't slap you on the front, on the chest, on the back. So that's the first thing you need to understand. So you're breathing on the front and you're eating from the back. Okay. How does your body differentiate between breathing and eating? So when you take something into your mouth, how does your brain tell your body that this is food, it's not air, or this is air, this is not food? Okay? There's a mechanism in your throat, above your upper voice box, below your tonsils, just there, it's called an epiglottis. Yeah? Epiglottis, another key word to remember, epiglottis. From this epiglottis comes your two letters, Ain and Ha. Okay, now epiglottis is a small piece of meat, okay, which always stays closed. It's always closed. Okay? What does it close? It closes the food passageway. So by default, you're breathing. Yeah? So you don't have to make an effort to breathe. There's no effort. You can be sleeping and breathing, no problem. You'd never think, am I still breathing? Am I alive? Am I breathing? No. You don't need to think about it, because that's your natural position. Your epiglottis is always closed. It closes the food. But when you eat now, you have to put a lot of effort into it. Okay? Other than chewing the food, about 50, 60 times, so much minute, just take one bite. And then when you swallow, what do? See that? When you're swallowing, what are you doing? The epiglottis, it flips, it opens, so it opens the food passageway and it closes the air passageway. Okay? The shift between the two, so it opens the food and closes the air passageway. Why does it close the air passageway? So you don't choke. If the food goes down your air passageway, what happens? You end up flooding. If you drank water and it went into your lungs, you'll drown. That's how you drown in the ocean. When you're trying to survive, trying to swim, you're trying to breathe, and you're under the sea level, you take a breath, and you're breathing water. Go straight into your lungs. Lungs are flooded, you're dead. You can't breathe. Yeah? So that's how you drown, when water goes into your lungs. So the key thing is here, epiglottis, that differentiates between your food and your air passageway. So that's your second point. The first one, your hanjara or larynx, your voice box, which is behind your Adam's apple. The two letters, Hamza and Ha. Next one, epiglottis. Ain. That squeeze is the epiglottis moving. Ain. And you're closing the airway. Ain. Ain. Ha. Ha. You're actually closing the air passageway, and the air then whistles past. It's like a balloon, you know, you blow up a balloon, you let go, it goes. Yeah? The same balloon, when you grab the neck and you pull it tight, squeeze it, what happens? Yeah? Or makes a bit more sharper sound that I can't do. So that's what balloon does. Similar with your epiglottis. So when you're squeezing the air passageway, it makes that whistle sound, that ee, ha, ha, ha. And ain, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ain is the epiglottis. The last one is from here, ghair al-kha, which is the last part of your throat. Your throat finishes here, and your mouth starts here. That's your border, where your Adam's apple is. So where your throat finishes, because the tongue becomes the throat, same piece of meat. So the tongue doesn't stop here, it continues, and it becomes the wall of your neck internally. Okay, your breathing part. So this part here, where your tonsils are, it breaks up. So your ghair al-kha from the last part of the throat, and just over the border, you got the letter qaf, and then the mouth starts after that. So Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri only mentioned these 6 letters, the makhraj. Okay, only 6 letters for all to worry about. They mention فَالْأَوَّلُ الْإِظْهَارُ قَبْلَ أَحْرُفِ لِلْحَلْقِ. They come from the halq. So remember, halq does not mean neck. Halq, a throat, is not the same as a neck, and neck is not a throat. Okay? So if you've studied Tajweed all your life and you don't know the difference between halq and throat, okay, then you've struggled. Because halq is inside your throat. Sorry, halq is inside your neck. So neck is the whole thing, and halq is only small inside. Now I did a massive diagram. My chin is not that big, and nor is my neck that long. Yeah, so I just magnified it for you. In reality, the space between Hamza and Ha, imagine this was Hamza and Ha. Yeah? Ain and Ha would be here, and Ghain and Ha would be there. That's your throat. No better than that. Absolutely smooth. That's your halq. This is your neck. Inshallah. They mention it in sequence. Hamzun faha'un, thumma aynun ha'un. Muhmalatan, referring towards the ayn and ha, that they are dotless. Then thumma ghaynun kha'u. Okay? And they are your letters of throat. And we'll come to an end. It's gone past 1 o'clock. So inshallah we'll continue tomorrow. Okay? So the key thing that I want everyone to remember, number one, makhraj, can he ever change? No. Can permanent sifat ever change? No. Can temporary sifat change? Yes. In regards to your first 3 makhraj that Sheikh Sulaiman taught us, the Hamza and Ha, where do they come from? Voice box. Where is the voice box? Behind the al-Atfal. Simple. You could put a finger on it now. When I was young, 9, 10 years old, I was told by Imam Staji, it's from here. When my shoulder blades, chest blades are, just stay in the middle. That's where your Hamza and Ha come from. Your Ha actually. And then Hamza came above that. Okay? So everybody points there, or the point towards the chest. Okay? So Adam's apple, behind there is your voice box. That's your Hamza and Ha. So try practicing that. Easiest way to practice is Hamza, Fatha, Hamza. Or the 2-eyed Ha. Don't go, So here, Yeah. فألهمها همها. No. فألهمها. Try to get it to your chest here. فألهمها فجورها. The next one are عين and Ha. إياك نعبد. Ha. Alhamdu. Hamdu. Make sure there's a squeeze in that throat. If you don't have a squeeze in your ham, you are saying fire, lanat, disgrace to Allah, na'udhu. If you read Alhamdu, and your epiglottis hasn't moved, yeah, you're definitely reading wrong then. The epiglottis must move, the air passageway must be slightly closed. Alhamdulillah. Then the ghayn and kha are from the top. Gha. So ghayn does not come from the mouth. A lot of people in Punjabi will say, for example, or in Urdu, wo ghareeb the. So when you say ghareeb, we use it from the middle of the tongue. Ghareeb. Yeah? But in Arabic, ghayn comes from your top of your throat. So it's gha. Yeah? So غير المغضوب عليهم. And غير is a full mouth letter. غير empty mouth. غير full غير المغضوب عليهم. Yeah? Not غير المغضوب. I'm reading from my mouth now. You know, a bit of saliva in the middle of the tongue. غير. Yeah? So remember these letters from the throat. There's key things you have to remember. Epiglottis for the Ain and Ha. Your voice box for the Hamza and Ha, nothing below that. Ghain, make sure it's from your throat, not from your mouth. Not غير المغضوب. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم. Tomorrow, see you at 11 o'clock. I'll carry on that.
Inshallah, the brothers would fill in the sheet in D. I'm going to send a sheet over to the sisters as well. Put that in. We're going to keep register of your attendance. And based on that, inshallah, you'll get the ijazah from the sheikh. You can send over the sheet of the sisters, and one of the sisters could take responsibility. And at the end, give it to the office.
come this way, look side.
If anybody wants to get back on some of the points that I mentioned, it's on the YouTube inshallah. I'm just going to merge the points together. The second one is very good, you can see everything on the board.
Not very clear. See here. عند al-Atfal, al-Atfal, that is weak there.
Yeah, that's right.
Coin for at the top, just before where the mouth starts.
Okay.
Coin. These are all additional there. Only reason why I went through that part because it's mentioned by